Welcome to Star I Recapped. I'm going to describe the drama thriller movie Papillon today. Beware of spoilers. Take care and be cautious. 1931. Safecracking expert Henry Charrier, often known as Papillon, is from Paris. He often spends his days breaking into houses, taking pricey valuables, and giving it to his employer. He receives a sizable reward as payment. After pulling off a successful robbery one day, he meets with his employer and gives him the diamonds he just took. When asked whether he retained any of the gems for himself, the other person asks, but Papillon rejects. The boss then displays a severely battered guy and warns that anybody who lies to him will experience the same punishment. Although the sight clearly intimidates Papillon, he maintains his composure and exits with the money. He sees his lover Ninette shortly after and gives her some valuables that he had kept from his employer. A guy spots them as they leave and takes note of Ninette's jewelry in particular. The pair makes love that night and talks about their future. Ninette wants to go to the country, distant from the criminal underworld, but Papillon believes they won't be able to support themselves there. The two were talking the next morning when there was an unexpected knock at the door. As soon as Papillon unlocks it, several police officers seize him. The same individual who his employer assaulted yesterday night is being blamed for his murder. The police take Papillon away despite his attempts to explain that he spent the whole night with his sweetheart. Ninette later visits Papillon at the police station and says she wants to testify, according to Papillon. He dissuades her, stating that it is useless. Papillon is aware that the cops won't let him go no matter what he does. He intends to escape the jail as a result. Papillon encourages his lover to continue living her life before leaving, but she refuses. After Ninette departs, Papillon makes friends with a fellow prisoner called Jalot, who discloses that it costs a lot of money to escape from jail. Louis Degas, who seems innocent and declares that he is the answer. Degas, who reportedly owns $1 million, was detained on suspicion of forging currency. He still has a lot of money stashed away in the region where the sun never shines. All of the detainees are now being transported by boat to the French Guiana penitentiary colony. Degas rejects Papillon's offer to provide security in return for money when he approaches him at night. While the convicts are all sleeping at night, Degas witnesses the terrible murder of the inmate sitting next to him. He had really been targeted because he had secreted money within his stomach, it turned out. Degas visits Papillon the following morning and accepts the offer since the encounter has terrified him. Degas will get protection up until he gets to the penal colony as part of the agreement. He knows his wife will soon get him out, so he doesn't want to flee with Papillon. Later, when everyone is sleeping, Degas is the victim of the same killer from last night. He starts to hit his victim gently, but Papillon intervenes this time. The cops are informed as a result of the two's altercation. Papillon receives a penalty, but he doesn't seem to care. He is only relieved that Degas was spared. The boat eventually arrives in the correctional colony the next morning. Juliet intentionally hurts himself so that he may be rushed to the hospital before anybody else can go on. The hospital is the least secure, so he intends to escape from there. After some time, Papillon and the other prisoners arrive to the colony where they would be held captive. The area is teeming with dangerous criminals, several of whom have been accused of murder. The warden is a vicious guy. He collects all of the new prisoners and declares that leaving the facility is not feasible. If detected, the offender will spend 2 years in solitary jail. If they are apprehended a second time, they will serve 3 years in solitary. Additionally, they will be taken to the infamous Devil's Island, a site where people go mad if they are detected fleeing for the 3rd time. The warden also warns that anybody found guilty of murder will be guillotined in front of everyone. All the prisoners are given the task of gathering rocks in the scenario that follows. Papillon performs it well, but Degas finds it difficult since he is not accustomed to working. Later, when he runs across a boatman, Papillon makes him an enormous financial offer in return for a boat. The guy consents, telling Papillon to show up at the coast the next evening. Suddenly, a prisoner with a bad reputation learns of the scheme and approaches Dega to demand money. But even in this situation, Papillon steps in to save the day. He engages in combat with the guy and ultimately overcomes him despite suffering injuries. Dega sees this and knows he won't be able to go a day without Papillon. He will already be dead by the time his wife comes up with a plan to free him. As a result, having run out of choices, Dega joins Papillon in his escape strategy. All of the convicts were called to the yard the next morning to see an execution. Gillot ended up killing 2 guards in his attempt to flee. He will now be executed by guillotine as a result. The whole jail population watches in horror as Gillot is attached to the machine and beheaded. The warden then gives the order for Papillon and Dega to transport the body to the grave. Unfortunately, Dega malfunctions along the route. In his whole life, he had never even seen a dead corpse, and here he was being forced to carry a decapitated guy. He refuses Papillon's encouragement to get up. At that point, the guards show there and tell Dega they will take the body. One of them begins flogging him in the back when he refuses. In a flash of fury, Papillon crushes the guard's skull with a rock because he can no longer take it. He then makes a break for it, but poor Dega, is frozen with horror. Papillon greets the boatman as he lands at the beach at night. To his amazement, the guy laughs when he asks for the boat. Papillon observes numerous guards as he turns around. Surprisingly, the boatman had previously told the warden about the escape. Every time he offers information on a prisoner who is trying to escape, he receives a sizable payment. When Papillon is returned to the jail shortly after, the warden informs him of some encouraging news. The fact that the guard he previously hit is still alive means that Papillon won't get the death punishment. Instead, he will be sent to another island solitary confinement facility. He finds the area to be dark and forlorn when he arrives. Don't make any noise is the one and unchanging guideline. Inmates are restricted to a tiny chamber, as opposed to the former jail where they could wander free and visit with their acquaintances. Here, even talking to oneself is a crime that carries a penalty. Additionally, the food is poor and insufficient. Only one meal, a strange-looking soup, is provided to Papillon. But unexpectedly, he gets a coconut one day. There is a message inside that informs him that coconuts will henceforth be sent daily. When Papillon realizes it's from Dega, he enthusiastically consumes the food. After a few weeks of this, the warden finally learns about it and executes the guard who was delivering food. He then meets Papillon and demands an explanation. The latter, as anticipated, says nothing. The warden punishes him by having his already meager allowance. After a month, Papillon has lost a lot of strength as a result of malnutrition. Once again approaching him, the warden asks who delivered him the coconuts while holding a mouth-watering dinner in his hand. But Papillon says nothing, just like the last time. The warden is so furious that he chooses to keep him in the dark for the balance of his term. Now, Papillon finds himself in a dreadful condition where he cannot even see his surroundings, has inadequate nutrition, and without a companion. The peace and lack of nutritious nourishment gradually drive him mad. When Papillon loses all of his strength and is unable to move, he is brought to the jail infirmary. Dega has unintentionally begun working at the same location. He gained the warden's confidence during the previous 15 months, earning him further protection and privileges. Dega eventually runs into his pal and discovers that he is only being crazy. Papillon began behaving erratically after realizing that this was the only way to go back to the penitentiary. The two then begin talking about their escape strategy once again. This time, they decided to enlist the assistance of 2 additional convicts. Dega wants to aid someone who is often taken advantage of, whereas Papillon wants someone who is powerful and crafty. They ultimately choose to work with a brute called Cellier and Machuret, a victim of constant bullying.
Abban the misfight seal the capskin again no nella murder misfight but so much in it. Tonight here but it's a hurryless. Yeah, you're giving me. Or position fingers. Yeah, when the stick nilla backed up. I get to certain isn't yeah, but I ain't a writing is alley root factor at all with the Irish times the sauceryless. That's such me macro says here. That's her profile with no stand get a thought of loss it up. You know, kind of they're off here if the version that had the said unrealist. So I ain't a merfna run on if they have in the feet. I should have asked me under the snake wireless net a lady medium is much off. My dog needed was it over. So get the fair realist. There's time out this is I get there's net it's irregular. Call was Slovenia, see that line now have my feelings. No such mysteryless guys your neck is no one left. Girls here. Either cause off in it, said that literacy. No capture seal but still was it against blow, Vervilla. Steer's times net early listen to about name rising in a love sescus. She with the steely long together, you know, both naked, master's fat. Sent her the fascist nave, and he stepped boyish that speed sealed the pirate nets, there's net name, but skull not engaged. Master it's such see, get the buzzer sugar deal of it. Nej, mycket har det work lobby. I it's cash no no. Far than enough na eel for necessary. Yeah, for so hurryless. For what the all was it closer with. There was the guy nerfing it out as snake or sir the in the nella before never snake build us. Speak me in the sea, get my work speed and it's your police. Yeah, either stay when it's guard so much cashny. Nails but the snake on it. Cedar with any very the sister of giving me see being wicked. Wire in a scan in the early thief with the star for you. Her vendor under these it serves nice long night. No words is it that in my head sneals get nerves is ulks no up. Get up steals must knock me out no that night. If you're red easy not it again. Near see but those that save women. Stand scan the deal for snap in the burger. Yes, sister, but Scott Knox this is out of your listening. Snuff civil or listening.
They find themselves on an island when they awaken. It turns out that they were saved by a neighboring village when they were seen floating in the water. A nun welcomes him and informs that they are in Colombia, while Papillon wanders about the area in uncertainty. She also says that she is aware of what they did and their origins. When Papillon attempts to explain himself, the nun responds that as long as he repents of his faults, he is safe. The next evening, Papillon runs into his closest buddy and advises him to leave the area right away. Dega refuses, claiming that their agreement is ended. He wants to remain in one spot indefinitely since he is sick of running. Papillon departs from him and goes to Machuret, but he has become used to the location and the females in particular. So Papillon makes the decision to leave the area alone, but as he gets closer to the boat, he sees more cops arrive. It turns out that the sinister nun revealed their whereabouts to the law. When Papillon returns to Dega in a panic to assist him in getting up, the cops have already seen them. While Papillon and Dega are captured and sent to jail, Machuret is shot and instantly murdered. 5 years later, Papillon is being sent to Devil's Island after serving his whole term in solitary prison. He is shocked to discover Dega there. It is discovered that he received a stiffer penalty due to the fact that he drugged the policeman drinks. Immediately after returning from Colombia, Dega was sent to Devil's Island. After a 5-year separation, the two are eager to meet again. Although they have aged, their relationship and closeness have not changed. That night, as Papillon looks out onto the water, a thought suddenly enters his head. The waves will carry them to the closest coast. He promises Dega, provided they can construct a tiny raft. Dega, however, declines to take part in it this time. He claims that he has lived peacefully, without incident or violence, for the last 5 years. Additionally, he now knows that his wife has a new husband, making a return pointless. Nevertheless, he chooses to help Papillon construct the coconut raft. The next morning, the two buddies gave each other parting hugs. Then Papillon launches the raft into the water before diving in. The strategy succeeds, and it seems as if the waves are leading him someplace. Degas' eyes are filled with tears as he flies off. We are transported to 1967 in the last scene. Since Papillon is still sought for criminal activity in France, he currently resides in Venezuela. He is, however, absolved of all charges in 1969. All of the incidents are detailed in a memoir that Papillon has written and is getting ready to publish. He visits Paris for the first time in 38 years as the film comes to a close.